Good morning. This is Mona, and this is my morning view. I'm still trying to put my glove on because it is cold. Cold out here. Brr. Brr. Today, I think I said good morning. This is Mona, and this is my morning view. This is not Mona. I am Mona. I'm going for a good start this morning. It is just cold, cold, cold. Winter edition. Winter edition. All right, today it is Memory Monday. So, I was thinking this morning about how I kind of got into all this in the first place. And so, who do I coach? Who is my who, right? And I'm not going to get into the details of who is my who, but it really is for people that were probably in the cubicle world. They don't have to have been in the cubicle world, but, cubicle world where stress was the number one motivator. Fear, stress, losing your job, workplace abuse. So I talk about workplace abuse a lot because that's what I came out of. And so it's for those that have struggled in the workplace. And maybe not as horrible for some and maybe even more horrible for others. Because we all have our levels of what we tolerate before we no longer can tolerate them. And so, my thought this morning went to, David first. David. And you know that he started as a shepherd. And then he did this really grandiose thing, and he killed a giant, which brought him into the king's palace. So the king, he had some demons that he was fighting off. And what soothed those beasts were the songs of David. So David would come to the palace and he would play his, I call it a harp, but it wasn't a harp. It was probably more like a lyre, maybe. And as he played, it soothed the anger. Well, as David grew in stature and the people loved David. He was, Saul killed his thousands, David killed his tens of thousands type of thing. Saul was jealous of David. Part of those demons that kind of took control because he gave access to that. So what happened is, he became a tyrannical boss. Oh. I don't know what that is. So anyways, he became a tyrannical boss. To the point of wanting to kill him. Wanted to kill. Sometimes you feel like your boss is trying to kill you. I know. I felt that because I was dying. My job was literally killing me. Physically, mentally, and spiritually. With the heaviness. The heaviness. When I walked out of that building on my last day, it felt like the weight of the world literally fell off my shoulders. I was too loyal to leave. I was too afraid and not trusting God that he would take care of me. This job, I had to have this job, that it's my job. You see, sometimes we get into these situations because we don't know our boundaries. So I didn't know workplace boundaries. I was always brought up that you do what your boss tells you to do within, whether it was legal or moral. But what is the level of morality? Remember, morals change through time and society. The people decide what is moral in this day and age. And when I say day and age, we're talking hundreds of thousands of years. Yes, God has a standard, but the world doesn't go by that standard. The things that we say are okay today would have never flown 50 years ago. Maybe even 30 years ago. Maybe even 20 years ago. Right? So we get into these positions where the boss takes more liberty for the ask. Only sometimes it's not an ask. Sometimes it's you will do this. You will do this. And then they threaten. They threaten you. They threaten your job security. And because you think that your job is your boss, that they are your provider. But they are not your provider. God is your provider. And so I sit there and I think about David being under the subordination of King Saul. But as he was there, mind this, he was always respectful to Saul. He gave enough to Saul to say, look, you know what, I could have taken you out, but instead I just cut your skirt. So now your hiney is showing, but that could have been your life. But I'm not going to touch the anointed. Samuel anointed you to be king. You're anointed, and I'm not touching that. David built character. Was David perfect? No, absolutely not. But he built character, and he trusted in God, and he gave reverence and respect to the king, to his boss. And so I sit there and I think about, well, what can we take from this? That we're working for this boss. Maybe that's exactly where God wants us, because God placed David there so that David would become king. God elevated David. David didn't elevate David. He trusted in God to kill the giant. He trusted in God about that. How dare you? He came to the honor of God. How dare you say that about my God? I'm going to chop off your head today. And then he did. Back to the head thing. So here he was, elevated to a place where he was in the palace. But he served under the king. And he took on multiple roles in that place. So he had a couple of different tasks. So sometimes when we're like, man, the boss is just laying more stuff on me and more stuff on me and more stuff on me. But guess what? It grew David. It grew his character. It grew his understanding. before Goliath, he wasn't a soldier. He wasn't in the army. He wasn't a militant man. But it was through being elevated from a shepherd that he became a soldier, a leader. It's through being in the palace and getting to know Saul personally, not as his friend. Saul's son, Jonathan, was his friend. Sometimes we're placed in a position to build our characters. Sometimes you got to know when to get out. Jonathan told David when to get out. But David still honored the king by not killing him. Had David killed the king, Jonathan would have taken the throne. Jonathan was his friend. He would have served him faithfully. But he chose not to do that because he was not going to touch God's anointed. He was given tasks, and he did them, and he did them well. Joseph was in the same kind of situation where, his boss was good. He was okay with his boss. But the boss's wife? Not so nice. And Joseph got falsely accused. So sometimes that happens too. Sometimes you have a coworker or someone that's under the boss but close to them that sets you up. They set you up. So how do you deal when you're in those situations? Well, if God doesn't want you to get out, like Jonathan told David, hey, I'm going to send this arrow out this way, and if you see it land this way, don't come back to the palace because Dad's trying to take you out. If you're supposed to leave, you trust in the Lord that He will take care of you. You leave. Don't wait around. Don't sit there and go for years, over 10 years. I knew I was supposed to leave, but I didn't leave because I didn't think I was going to get a job anywhere else. I didn't trust God that He was going to take care of us. I needed that paycheck. And all the while, it was killing me. So if God's telling you to leave, you leave. But if God is telling you to stay, what do you do? Well, this is when the minors come in. So you have two occasions where it looks like they're talking about the same thing, but they're not. There's the story of the talents, and the talents talks about money making money. It is literally about money. The minas, that's different. The minas aren't talking about money, because what the minas are talking about is authority. It talks about authority, and it talks about taking territory. Because when you are faithful in the little things, when you are faithful in the little things, even when you're under a tyrant like King Saul, even when you are sabotaged by Potiphar's wife, when you're faithful in the little things, not only does God elevate you, but he expands your territory, which means he expands your territory of authority, your audience. Who sees you? Pharaoh saw Joseph. David became king. Being faithful in the little things, the minas. See, talents were worth more. And minas, they were a little bit. They were a little bit. They were faithful with what they had, with what they were given. You know, when all this comes to an end, there's going to be a crown. And we set that crown at Jesus' feet. And this is what the thing is. This is why the 24 elders put their crowns before Jesus' feet. It wasn't theirs to begin with. They didn't earn it. They didn't earn the crown. We don't earn our crown. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, but you get all these jewels and everything when you bring people to Christ. And it's all about earning your way by doing, you know, yes, we're to bring people to Christ. Yes, we're supposed to spread the good news. Yes, we're supposed to expand the kingdom. However, you can't earn it. You cannot earn the gifts of God. Joseph knew that. David knew that. They were just faithful. All right. That's all I got for you today. Blessings, everybody. Have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow for Tips Tuesday. Bye. I got to take off my glove first in order to shut off the camera. All right. Oh, before I do, I almost forgot. I'm told this is a very, 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 very important thing to do. Call you to action. Ready? Like, share, comment here on Facebook. Then go over to YouTube. Mona E. Harrison, different than my Facebook profile. Mona E. Harrison. You will see my white hair, my beautiful face, and you will know you're in the right spot, and you will subscribe. Subscribe, hit notifications, get all the bells and whistles, like, share, comment there as well, even if you don't agree. Helps with the algorithm. Pretty sure you all know how it works now. So, yeah, go there, check out my YouTube page, Mona E. Harrison, and follow me there. All right, blessings, everybody. Have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.